I'm Michelle, and it is time for Talk to Me Tuesday on November 24th, 2020. Happy Thanksgiving! And I hope everybody has a very safe and happy holiday and enjoy some turkey. This year we're just celebrating with just my husband and myself being at home, and so hopefully we have lots of large family gatherings in the future. So with that, I have been busy quilting this week. I finished the hockey quilt and got the taekwondo belts sewn on, and I'll put a picture in it, but I did the belts in the sashing between the shirts, and really pleased with the way it turned out. I am so glad I did not try quilting it with the belts on there, because I ended up breaking a needle and bending 2 needles. So by the 4th needle I got it down and was able to complete. The orange belts were the worst ones. The other belts, everything seemed to sew okay, and I am so glad I did the meandering boxes, because the rectangle boxes of the belts on the back does not show at all, and so I'm very pleased with the way that turned out. This morning I quilted this quilt for a friend, and it's kind of a fun one because she borrowed purples from me, so she'd have a few more varieties. So this purple is mine, I believe that purple is mine, and that purple contributed. And I quilted it with a fleur-de-lis, and am very pleased with the way it's turning out. So hopefully she'll be pleased when I get it back to her, and then she can gift it. I did, moving on, this week I was able to do 3 more string blocks. They're fun fillers, although I don't know how I can take my strips, use up strips, and create more scraps. It seems like whenever I do one of these, the blocks create more scraps than what I started with. I don't know, maybe in there fluffing up the strings, and they take up more space than when I start. But I know I'm using some of them up, and I now have a stack of various sizes, and so I'll keep sewing these and keep using up my red, white, and blue strips, and eventually end up with a nice size lap quilt or something. I also did Clarice, and I not only did Clarice once, but I reused my pattern pieces and did Clarice a second time facing the opposite direction, and so I really like the way she turned out. So anyway, I have my 2 different backgrounds done. You say reused pieces, huh? Well, what I do, and I did one wrong, so I have a mouth going the way of the first one. So, but what I do is, let's see if I can find, well, let's find the piece that I have an extra of. It is right here. So, typically what I do is with piece number 1, I lay it down on here, I pin it, I fold the paper back like so, and I trim my seam allowance. Then after I trim my seam allowance, I line up my next piece of fabric, and I stitch right along the edge of the paper. And by stitching it right along the edge, I'm not stitching through the paper, and I have it folded on or just barely past the line, so that my seam ends up where that line is at. And then I fold it open and trim, add the next piece, and so forth until I'm sewing my last piece on, and it would be something like like this, stitch it, and then press it, and then I come back, I trim it to size, and then after I've trimmed it, voila, I remove my pattern. I don't have to rip any of the pages, and I can reuse it. And I've done some of these where I've used my papers 2 or 3 times or more. When you do get to the little tiny pieces though, the numbers start rubbing off. So that makes it a little bit more challenging, but it has allowed me to reuse my pattern pieces and still have the effect of paper piecing. And I've done it many a times now, and to bridge the gap from regular paper piecing to this, I did the freezer paper method, where you trace your pattern onto freezer paper and work with the shiny side towards your fabric and iron your fabric down on your freezer paper. Well, one day after not wanting to trace my pattern onto the freezer paper, it's like, well, why can't I just fold the paper back and stitch right along that edge? And sometimes I do catch it. I caught it right here when I was stitching this seam, but it's right there, so I'm just perforating, but not actually stitching through all of it. Once in a while I do stitch through it because I can't sew a straight line for anything, it seems like. But then I just gently give it a little tug and it comes undone. And sometimes I do have to use 2 or 3 pins as the piece grows, and I don't want it shifting. I'll end up putting a pin here where I started, and then maybe a pin here and a pin here. I like to use the flat-headed pins so that when I iron, I don't have a bump, or when I lay my ruler down on it, it lays flat. And so anyway, thought you might be interested in that. But I love the way Clarice has turned out, and the reverse of Clarice, this one I haven't squared up, so it's a little bit bigger. For some reason when I printed the pattern I didn't print the right size, so she ended up at 9.5 instead of 10.5 unfinished, so I just added a border across the top and down the side, and voila, I have my 2 Clarices. So anyway, happy Thanksgiving again, and we will talk to you next week. Bye.